I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
What's going on, Tribe Mates? We are here for the finale of Season 40, Winners at War Survivor. It has been a crazy season. Thank you, everybody who has tuned in for every show, or even if you're just hopping into the finale, you're so appreciative that you are here. We have so much to talk about because that 3-hour finale was bonkers. I'm going to say it again, was bonkers. I've got an amazing panel here to talk about it. Mike Feeling, I know you have a lot of thoughts.
I'm super excited, dude. Like, oh my God, what a great finale. We just said literally before we went live that this made up for season 39, and any of the other past 39 seasons you didn't like, 40 made up for it. I love the finale. Honestly, I love that there was no reunion. I loved everything about last night. Oh, so excited.
And we've got our girl, Veronica Valencia. Hey, Veronica.
Hey, oh my gosh, last night's finale was amazing. Season 40 overall was absolutely fantastic. Pretty much best gameplay, best cast. It was called the Super Bowl of Survivor, and it definitely did not disappoint.
Agreed. And of course, we wouldn't be complete without our Dream Team Challenge guy, Steve Gainey.
Oh my God. It's the season I have been waiting for all my time as a Survivor fan, to just see this whole sort of saga come full circle. I mean, just the final Edge of Extinction challenge, like the everything that they were just Rob and Amber and just so much was going on. I really got emotional during this episode.
I completely agree with you, Steve. I don't think I've cried more on a finale show ever. It was very emotional, and you know, it was kind of bittersweet to see it end. And we're definitely going to talk about it. We're going to do our reveal of who won the fantasy draft. Those of you who have the reveal. Okay, well, Mike has won the fantasy draft.
Everybody knows.
For those of you who have been keeping up, unfortunately, Mike wins. Damn you, Mike.
I'm just kidding.
Instead of doing, and I'm going to surprise my fellow hosts with this, instead of doing our MVP at the end of the episode, because we obviously know who the MVP is. He's the one who won the show. We will be doing predictions for what season 41 could possibly be, since they did not tell us. So while we are doing the show, you guys think about it, marinate on it, brainstorm about it. We also want to hear everybody in the chat that is joining us today. Let us know what you think about season 41, what it could possibly be. But in the meantime, let's dive into this 3-hour finale of Survivor Winners at War. So Jeff Probst, just like the rest of us, is doing the show from his home, which is kind of endearing to see. I enjoyed seeing Jeff Probst in his garage.
Yeah, Jeff, way to upstage me on my Survivor at home studio.
Yeah. I wanted to know if Jeff Lysol down all those things that came to him in the mail. I disinfect, bro. That was a lot of little components.
Yeah, no COVID-19 in Jeff's garage at all. Now, this is the biggest season of Survivor ever. 20 winners, $2 million prize. And to have it without a live finale and then without a reunion show, is anybody else a little disappointed?
No. The reunion shows are always maybe 50-50 for me. I feel like it's gotten away. The early reunion shows I liked a lot. The recent ones I haven't really liked. I feel obligated, obviously, to watch them because I want to know everything. But I find myself like just wanting to fast forward through stuff. They play clips and things like that. I like this much better. I'd rather see way more stuff on the island, way more stuff, honestly, before the final tribal. I'm also glad that they don't ask everybody gets a question, and it just took way too long. I way more like the way they did it tonight, 100%.
Yeah, I feel,
for sure.
Don't get me wrong.
No, go ahead, Veronica.
Okay. Don't get me wrong. I really love the reunions. I would have loved to kind of see everyone get together and hear their thoughts, you know, because these are some of our favorite players, really just kind of get to hear their thoughts on their experience. And this was such a different type of season of Survivor. It was really a celebration. I've said that before. And, you know, there were a lot of really meta moments, kind of giving the audience what Survivor is really about. So I would have loved to hear more about their experiences. But I have to agree with Mike. I did like the way that the finale was, because we got so much actual screen time of the series. I thought it was going to honestly be like maybe 2 hours blended with like reunion in the middle, and that's what 3 hours was going to be. But it was legit 3 hours of the show, and I was so happy about it.
I kind of missed a little bit of the fanfare. I kind of wanted to see the big audience applause, and maybe there'd be some familiar faces in the audience that Jeff could sort of, meet up with. That's what I was kind of expecting. And so it was a little bit of a bummer to miss that, but having more of the show to watch was definitely a good consolation. And you get some of those really cool, sort of sentimental edits where they can go back and they can recap all the players, not just the finals, the final contestants. So that was a really cool moment. So, I guess I was a little bit like, oh man, of all the seasons to not have the live finale. But yeah, I wasn't disappointed. I didn't feel disappointed by the end of the episode.
You know what? To that point, this probably would have been the best reunion to have just because of who it is. I kind of have the same problem with Survivor reunions that I have with some of the recent Netflix show reunions, like Tiger King. Our network has covered all of them, like Tiger King. I did Too Hot to Handle and things like that. They don't really delve into a lot of the really strategy things. If they really put it to people like, why did you do this move? That would be really interesting. But for me, it starts to get too fluffy. I don't know.
Yeah, I miss the idea of the live finale. Some of the aspects of it, I agree with Steve. I missed, the Sia fan favorite. I do miss the camaraderie that we see as fans. They all come together for the finale. And, just a celebratory moment of having these players play for 39 days on island and just being, congratulated with all these people, just tipping their hats off to these players because they deserve it. I mean, they played their hearts out. So to kind of take away, that kind of, I don't even know the word for it, just, the gratitude that the fans have for these players was kind of bittersweet not to have it. But they definitely made up for it more than enough with this 3-hour finale. We've got our final 5: Sarah, Ben, Tony, Michelle, and Denise. And before last episode ended, we saw that there was going to be a battle back from Edge of Extinction. Now, before we get into this beast of a challenge for Edge of Extinction players had to endure, who did you guys want to win the battle back?
We all
I was rooting for Natalie.
Yeah, of course. 100%.
Yeah. I feel like for me personally, I knew in my mind that it had to be Natalie. I just think that her narrative in the entire season was leading up to this moment for her. But to be perfectly honest, I would have been satisfied had anyone gotten back into the game. I think one of the great things about this season is that everyone was so well balanced and highlighted. Like everyone had a moment in the spotlight where you really were rooting for that person at one point in time. So for me, I would have been okay with whoever got back because I was rooting for everyone, like I said, at one point in time. But yeah, this was made for Natalie.
I could challenge you on that. You really think everybody? Yeah. When were you rooting for Amber?
I was definitely rooting for Amber.
Because when Veronica said that, I was like, that's a great point. But then it popped in my head just a couple of people where I was like, they were barely on the show. Honestly, Sandra was almost barely on there, and Amber really was really silent on there.
I think for Amber, and we'll get into this kind of at the end of the challenge, but I think Amber's narrative was very well blended with Rob's narrative. Sure. So anytime that you saw Amber kind of like feeling like she was going to break down on Edge or, wanting to do the best to help Rob, I felt like I was rooting for them because their narratives, like I said, were tied together.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I was also like, when Natalie started to mess up the challenge and she was stuck in the ropes and then Wendell was pulling away, I found myself being like, oh no, not Wendell. Like he just doesn't have the narrative this season. I like Wendell. I liked him on his season. He kind of came off, he didn't have a great showing this season. But when he was like on the puzzle and he landed a ball, I was kind of like, no, this isn't where this isn't how the story's supposed to go.
Yeah.
Steve, I'm actually really glad that you brought that up, Steve, because not only was this challenge one of the most difficult because it was so long, there were so many aspects to this challenge, and rightfully so. I mean, this is the battle back into Survivor, season 40, full of winners. Of course, it had to be something that was difficult, but I didn't expect Natalie to struggle as much as she did. And thankfully she had those advantages, because if she didn't, I don't think she would have fought her way back. It could have probably been Wendell.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I'm surprised it wasn't a blowout. Going into this episode with knowing how many advantages Natalie had, I thought it was going to be a blowout because she would have gotten ahead so much quicker. But it just goes to show you never know what's going to happen in these challenges.
If you watch her right off the bat and she got all tangled up in the go twist around the pole, you know, you're connected, whatever. We've seen that challenge before. There was literally a point where, and you can rewind and watch this, where I said, she's done. But for some reason, she didn't know it. Like, I could see that the line was clear for her to just come out. Really, like not too long after she started. And she went back. And I was like, no, I wanted her to win so bad. I was like, what are you doing? Oh my God.
Yeah,
I need to
was
know.
rooting for Natalie, or I guess one of the reasons why I was rooting for Natalie was because of the people who were on the edge who stood a chance at all with the jury. It was like Natalie and maybe for like legacy reasons, like a Boston Rob or a Tyson, but that was it. I was like, if anybody else gets in, they're a non-issue for the jury.
Mike, I know that you're in the chat. I want to know if anybody else has any thoughts on who they wanted to bring back from Edge of Extinction. In the meantime, we saw Natalie win. Very happy for her. I cried for her. She was the first pick on my fantasy draft. She was my #1 player right out of the gate. So I wanted her to come back very, very badly. And I just thought, like Steve said, she was really, in my opinion, the only one who could come back that had any chance of winning, because except for like Boston Robert, like Steve said, the legacy people, because she has been the one that has the longest. She has the most story to tell from Edge of Extinction. And I just thought that she would win if she got to the end. Clearly, I was mistaken. We will get into it, which makes the final 6 now 4 women and 2 men, which, in my opinion, was actually really nice to see. We saw Sarah's thoughts about it. We'll talk about that later on in the episode. But right from the final 6, having 4 women and 2 men in the Winners at War season, it spoke volumes.
Yeah, most people in the chat agreeing with wanting Natalie back, just in general.
Good.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, dude, we'll get into it when we talk about Sarah's monologue, as someone put it in the chat. But if you don't think women can crush Survivor, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
So Natalie wins her way back at camp. Natalie knows that she's going to be a target.
Real quick.
Yes.
Let me interrupt you real quick, Tim, because people, I'm sure, and guys, in the chat, I don't know if you guys know this, but we're going for a while today. We got permission from the powers that be to go longer for you guys for this finale. So keep the questions coming. But people want to know, Steve, if you've done any parts of this challenge, the battle back.
Of this challenge, I have done the very first leg where you're sort of strapped in and you got to get yourself through an obstacle course while strapped to this rope. And I can tell you, it is difficult. It's not, because you're trying to go fast. You do not have a lot of slack. And especially as you go through and you're getting unwound, you do get a little more slack, but that means you're now carrying rope. So you can get tripped up by the rope that you've already gone through. And when you were saying that Natalie is like, she's done. I'm like, I know exactly what she's doing, because you know, you get those ropes looped through each other and you're like, oh wait, is this and now suddenly you're going back through the challenge you just did it and you're tangling yourself up. So yes, I've done that. I did not do this puzzle, but it looked like a puzzle that I thought to myself, this is going to be over quick. The lead is very important. So when I saw Natalie sort of starting to squander her advantages, I was like, no.
Over and over, by the way. Like we didn't even go into that. Her rope bridge dropped and it was like, my, every single thing. I was like, okay, she's got it now. No. Or she's got it now. No. Yes. Come on.
Which is why all the hard work she did on Edge of Extinction to win those advantages was huge. Because without those advantages, who knows what could have happened.
I will also say real quick before we go on, once she did win, I was like, see, why did you give Tyson an immunity idol? You could have used it, like, please.
Hey, that's jury management right there.
Yeah, I guess.
I completely agree with you.
Not.
She was just keeping us on our toes throughout that entire challenge, because I certainly was at the edge of my seat watching her try to win this battle back. So as Natalie goes back to camp, she quickly dives right back into the game. We got to give her kudos for that. She does not miss a beat. and starts planting little seeds of how the jury is really voting for Tony and trying to see where this final or these other five tribe members, stand with each other. And she quickly finds that Michelle is the one to go with. Now, in terms of her, disseminating this information about how Edge of Extinction really is vying for Tony to win, did you think that that was a smart move?
Yeah. I think it was. Here's the thing. When there's a season where Edge of Extinction is in play, if you come back, you automatically know that you're a target because you have spent so much time with other people building relationships. And especially in this season, we've seen just how big relationships are and how much they help you. So Natalie knew she was a target and she had to play any type of card she could in order to get the target off of her back. And the thing is that from what we as an audience can see, she wasn't lying. It's very clear that Tony was a front runner this entire season. But of course, everyone brings up a good point, and like she can say whatever she wants about the Edge, and no one can say, "Oh, you're lying," because how do they know?
Yeah, it's obvious to us that Tony is killing it, right? But perhaps not to the people in the game. They don't know what it looks like from jury. We kind of know more what it looks like from jury. And she knew she had immunity going in, right? She's got at least the one hidden immunity idol. Thank you to chat for reminding me or schooling me. I didn't realize you could only bring one back. I thought that was, we didn't even talk about that. My mistake. But she knew she was safe. So look, she's got to go to the wall. I think you just go in and wreck stuff, especially since you've got immunity. She has got to go and really just like pile drive people and really try to slam a wedge and do anything she possibly can because she knows she's the easy vote out. And since she has immunity, she knows she's going to be easy vote out next vote, right? Because she's safe for one. So you really got to go and just try to blow it up.
Yeah, and the things that she was saying were true. I mean, as evidenced by how the jury voted. But I think that Tony said it really well in that tribal council was it's not so much as finding a crack as it is creating a crack. And that's totally what she came in and what she needed to do. She had the idol in her pocket, so she had a little bit of safety. She could play a pretty aggressive game. But when you get back from the Edge, you have to play as aggressively as possible because you got to make up for a whole season in 4 days.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, before we move on to the first of many immunity challenges that we're going to talk about, guys, we do have to address, we did promise a special guest last episode. Unfortunately, due to circumstances, things happen. That person had to cancel, but we are hoping to get this person back in another show. Maybe we're going to do a special segment and just interview them on their thoughts of, how this finale went and their experiences on this season. I don't know if we're allowed to say who it is because I don't want to blow up that person's spot.
We did on Twitter.
Well, I mean, if you're on Twitter,
we weren't. If you went to Twitter, we were not trolling. That was set up and last minute cancellation. Last minute cancellation.
Yes,
last
minute cancellation.
We wouldn't lie to you guys.
But that just means you get more of our faces. So let's dive in to the first immunity challenge. So pretty much we've seen this before. Race through an obstacle, get a bag, climb a tower, water slide, do it again, solve the tiered puzzle. Now, Ben and Tony were in really early leads. Michelle was dead last. And, going into it, I was actually surprised that Tony and Ben were in the lead because they haven't really been that good on these physical challenges thus far. How did you guys feel about it?
Man, go ahead, V.
Well, once again, it goes to show that you never know what's going to happen in a challenge. For me personally, I think, these are the last few crucial immunity challenges. You need to step it up. And I think this was just a moment for Ben and Tony to really step it up, especially because with Natalie back in the game, there was so much going on before the scenes of like, does she have an idol? Does she not have an idol? We will talk about that and eventually know what the answer to that question is. But they're playing extra hard because immunity, especially with Natalie's uncertainty of advantages, is so important. So I'm sure that's why they definitely turned it up. And in terms of just the challenge, honestly, I wish there was like a Survivor obstacle course, kind of like Spartan races that you can just sign up and do, and they just let you run this obstacle because I want it so badly. Like
That was
Ben
Steve.
looked like
That
he
was
was
Steve's life.
Yes.
it was. You just had like a fun obstacle course going all the time. Ben looked like he was having fun. Michelle did like a fun little woohoo. I was like, oh, she's
Yeah.
having a great time.
Dude, Ben was not even doing the slide properly. He was like, no, I'm going to take this to the next level. He basically jumped over the steps and like air glided down until finally he hit the slide. Like, that's nuts, man.
Yeah.
That looked super fun. I love water slides and all that kind of stuff. They were very, very impressive just in general. And I love, obviously there's researchers and all that kind of stuff, but I love that Jeff just dropped in there. Michelle won this. So we didn't talk about this last episode, but I don't know where I'm at with this. Sometimes I really dislike it when Jeff directly addresses somebody, because I really think that Jeff can have an effect on how they do. So being like, Michelle won this in her season, that can give her a little bit of pep that she didn't have. Versus last episode, I forget, but he really got on somebody like, wow, Tony's really behind. And I was like, that's not cool, man. Like a regular commentary on what's going on, but to kind of dig into people, especially when they're down, I feel like that's almost unfair when they're starving and they're trying to run a challenge. So I don't know.
I mean, it can either light a fire under you or it can make you crack under the pressure. Either way, it's how you deal with it. So I think that's fair game.
But it's not to everybody. It's only to certain people. I mean, I guess unless it's edited out. I don't know.
I mean, to kind of go off of your point, Mike, Steve, you had once told us that, when they're setting up for challenges, Survivor obviously wants, everyone to have as fair of a chance as anyone else as possible. So I guess in that aspect, I don't know if is it considered like fair, or even, the fact that Michelle had done this exact puzzle, she knows exactly how it's supposed to go.
Well,
Like,
I mean, there
that
is
kind of
that.
stuff.
Yeah, there is like some experience that you can have that can sort of give you an edge in the challenges. But in terms of from the starting point of the challenge, absolutely everyone has an equal chance. If you're falling behind and Jeff starts to dig into you, that's because you fell behind in the challenge. Once they say start, everything else that goes in there, it's fluid. And if you can survive that, then good for you. And if you break under that pressure, well, then, that's as much as, Jeff could have dug into someone else who was behind if you had done a better chance in done better in the challenge. So in that respect, it's sort of, all is fair once you get going. But I have the best story about this water slide because we did this in Nicaragua. Okay, so everyone was there like, oh my God, Steve, did you do this? That water slide looks so fun. Yes, it was a lot of fun, except when we built this water slide, we painted it and we used this paint that was like a sealant, like waterproof sealant, because we had the water running through this. And as soon as we painted it, it was the challenge was built right on the beach. And as soon as we painted it, the wind kicked up and it blew all this sand into the wet paint. And that whole slide became a giant piece of wet sandpaper.
Oh my God.
It was the most painful slide you could have possibly imagined. I lost my butt on that slide. I looked down it like 10 times.
Oh,
it was so, I mean, the contestants are just going all out, so they don't even notice it.
Right.
We're like, oh yeah, we want to see this, do it a few more times for the camera. Oh, we want to demonstrate this. It was like, how many more times do I gotta go down this? It was so good. So hopefully they didn't have that problem this time. But yes, it was. Oof. It is as much fun, if not more, than it looks. Oh my God, it's the best. And you would see that the even these contestants, it's such a huge moment. They're still having fun with it. Michelle's like, woohoo! And just like spinning around and everything. It was awesome to watch because it's just so much fun.
I mean, it's day 36. I mean, this point, you're just gonna have to enjoy the experience. I mean, if you do well, you do well. If you don't, you don't. But Michelle certainly didn't crack under the pressure. She won when she needed to. This just goes to show how kind of unfair it was for people to give her so much slack for winning her season. And, congratulations to Michelle this season for really turning that around for herself, because she really proved to me, and I'm sure a lot of viewers, that she deserved every ounce of, forward momentum that she got in this game, because she did it all herself. She didn't rely on anybody in this game. And in this challenge, didn't change that at all. She went for it and she won when she needed to win it. And I was extremely proud of her.
Absolutely. I mean, she won that challenge. I love when people just like own a challenge. She was never out of it. Yeah, she was last and Natalie lapped her, but she just stuck with it. Nobody else even came close on that puzzle. She just gets it. And I've done that puzzle. And I will tell you, I remember last time we were like, oh, Steve, what's your win percentage? I could not do this puzzle for the life of me. I don't know what it is. You either just understand it or you don't. Michelle came out of there and started putting these pieces together like she had already seen the puzzle like 5 minutes before.
Right.
And everyone else is like sitting there just like scratching their heads. And that's where I just could not figure it out.
It was like Michelle was almost done with the second level, but people were trying to copy in the first level.
Yes.
I said, if you're just trying to copy her, then you definitely can't win. So there's no problem because you'll always be behind.
It's even too like weird to copy. Like they're all different pieces and they all look the same on what day is this day, like 35, 36. They all look the same. Like how can you even copy at this point? But definitely Michelle really brought it when she needed to. She had a huge underdog story this season, and that was kind of what once we're obviously gonna talk about final tribal and everything like that. So she really had an impressive gameplay. There were moments where I was just like, go girl, like you rock. And once again, going back to the idea that everyone has a moment where you're rooting for them.
Yeah. So let's talk about back at camp after this challenge. So obviously, strategery is about to take place. Obviously, Tony and Ben want to target Natalie. We saw that coming. Not a surprise. What did surprise me though is that Tony was the one that was saying Natalie has an idol. He's pretty sure she has an idol. And Ben and Sarah were two people that were, she does not have an idol. We're confident that she doesn't have an idol. Even Sarah was so adamant and said, if Natalie had an idol, she would have told me something. Yeah. I was actually really surprised that at this level of the game, after everything that Natalie's been through and fighting her way back in, that they would underestimate her.
This was nuts. So forget underestimate, forget any of the other stuff. Tony laid it out completely correctly. Statistically, there's no reason not to split just in case, right? Why even fathom the risk? We see what happened now. Luckily for them, or depending on whose side you're on, the outcome ended up the same. But why would you bother taking the risk?
Well, here's what I just don't understand. Like, what you're saying is the outcome was the same. Like, Denise goes home. Tony's like, look, let's just put our votes on Denise, and then we have our idols for next tribal council.
Sure.
So that's a great strategy, good gameplay. But imagine the next tribal council if Tony and Ben still have their idols, which means Natalie burns hers. So there's probably not going to be another one that goes back into the game. So Natalie doesn't go out and find another idol. So now next tribal council, Natalie has nothing. It would have completely changed the next tribal council.
Well, Natalie would have used hers regardless, right? So there would have been
the first one
been one out there. Or do they not bring back the
I mean, not necessarily, because that was one that she bought. Right. So technically there's two idols on the island.
Right.
And Ben and Tony both have them. If they just put their votes on Denise, they're still holding them. They're not going to put Natalie's Edge idol back into the game.
That's right. Yeah.
For me, this was a moment where I was just like screaming at the television because I'm just like, what makes you think there's not even a chance she could have an advantage, especially when all of the advantages in the game have come from Edge of Extinction. And we saw it last season that Edge of Extinction was in play too, was that Chris, yes, he had to get through his first tribal when he got back, but then he got an idol to help him progress. he got an idol to help him progress in the game. So it's like, what makes you think that's not even an opportunity that she would have an advantage? And this was the moment, well, there's multiple moments, but I feel like this is also just what stood out about Tony's gameplay and made his game so impressive was that he was thinking like an audience member. And we as audience members have so much more information than they do when they're playing on that island.
Sure.
And it's like, wow, you're thinking like me and you know way less about what's going on. That is impressive.
Well, why, when Tyson came back, are we to believe that he didn't tell anybody about what they could buy? Because the menu was right there to get a hidden immediate idol when Tyson fought back, right? So there was no way to even think that. Then when they were there watching Natalie battle back, they saw that she bought 3 advantages. I mean, it's just really, really short-sighted, and I don't know what it is, ego or whatever, but there's no advantage you can see unless somehow you don't want to get Denise mad, which is just, it's nuts. It's so few people. She's going to have to vote for somebody in the end. I don't see that as being an issue. Terrible gameplay.
Yeah, let's move into the first tribal council. So obviously they don't think that Natalie has an idol. She does. But more important than that, we get this monologue from Sarah, and a lot of people in the chat already kind of mentioned it, where it's this men versus women gender bias. And, Sarah has been, holding on to a lot of things since her last season that she's played that made her look like a bad person.
Tim.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Lucina. Lucina, my bad. Yes, Lucina has been holding on to since her last season, just based on how she played and how hard she took it. But if it was a man that did it, they wouldn't be, portrayed, as a bitch or a bad player or, a backstabber. It would just be, a good move. How did you guys feel about, what she was saying? And do you agree with her?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, Survivor obviously has had so many seasons. It's been on for so many years. And throughout the seasons, we have definitely seen a cultural shift happening in society. And I feel that, this has been a reoccurring thing that has stuck with a lot of contestants. We even saw it brought up last season too with Kelly when we were talking about the all-female alliances. And so it's really troubling for a woman to feel like they can't go out and play a cutthroat game, play their hardest with fear that they're looked upon poorly. It's like, if you're on the game of Survivor, you should be able to play the game you want to play, and everyone should be able to realize you're playing the game. You're not doing this because you're rude, because I'm going to call you this name or that name or whatever. Despite like whatever your gender, you should be able to play your game.
Yeah, I totally agree. There are definitely, I would just like to say, instances of guys who have played really hard and had gotten a terrible kickback from people and sentiment as well. I mean, Johnny Fairplay, damn, right? He played real dirty, and maybe he got some of what was coming to him afterwards. Everybody loves to hate me in the chat. They know Russell's one of my favorite players. He gets a ton of flack too. But absolutely, I just, as she was saying this, I was like, man, it's really, really sad that she would ever think that. I certainly don't look at it that way. I echo it again. Anybody who doesn't think women can crush Survivor is stupid. The best ever is still probably Sandra. I mean, tons and tons of women players, women winners. They're awesome.
And Sarah's speech where she was just saying, I'm a cop. I ran 7 marathons on 7 continents. I was on the SWAT team. I was like, I feel insecure. I just thought it was such a cool moment. She's had a few moments that I felt could be construed as sort of like maybe pandering or just playing to the jury, but that I felt were really genuine moments. And I thought this was another one of those. And I thought it was totally heartfelt. Jeff had a really good response where he's like, I'm sure if I go back and look at the things that I've said, that it can show some of my own bias. So it was eye-opening for a lot of people. And I really thought it was just great television.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I completely thought it was heartfelt. I didn't think she was playing it up or anything like that. But when she said that, I was like, ooh, the jury's gonna love this, and I feel like you inadvertently just painted a target on your back. Unfortunate for no judgment, right? Fortunate, unfortunate, whatever. I was like, oh, everything you're saying is so right on, and you're just making a crazy case for you to win. I was like, kind of stop, please.
Yeah, I mean, we know that everything that you say and do in this game is going to either paint a target on your back or
Constant.
not. And in this case, yes, I agree with you, Mike. I think that her saying this, very genuine. I completely agree with her. But yes, of course, it's going to put a target on your back because you look like a superhero.
She is. She is a superhero.
So Jeff, I love how he owned up to his own bias as well. That was really endearing to see as well. I always love when the host of the show can sit there and say, you know what, I made mistakes too, but we're going to move on. It's that as much as we want to make Survivor about these issues, it's not about that. It is about the plays and it is about this game. So in terms of the game, Natalie plays her idol, rightfully so, causing Tony to play his idol, Ben to play his idol. Now, something that I did like about this is that now everybody's kind of on a level playing field. We fleshed out all the idols. What really sucks about it, though, is that Sarah and Denise, the two people who don't have anything in their pockets, are now the two players who are at risk of going home. So because 4 people have immunity, Sarah and Denise would occasionally obviously vote for each other, therefore canceling out their votes. So what happens now is that if there was a tie, Denise and Sarah would have had to do a fire making challenge. Now, we saw what happened. Denise went home, obviously with all of the votes. But was anybody curious to see another fire making challenge?
No, I hate fire making challenges.
Well,
Okay.
I actually thought that it might benefit Natalie and Michelle to keep Ben around, because I think Ben might have been a better fire challenge against Tony. If your number one objective is to take out Tony, you might say, we want to keep Ben around. So I don't know why they put their votes on him, but I can understand.
Yeah, for sure. I 100% agree with you, Steve. I love the fact that you brought it up because that was brought up a while back about, Ben being a beast at making fire, and would anyone really want to sit next to him at a fire making challenge? So if your goal is to get rid of Tony, then keeping Ben around for fire is probably one of your best options. But once again, the fact that Tony wasn't even targeted, and to everyone who's in the chat, correct me maybe if I missed something. I don't. No one knew about Tony's idol. So the fact that maybe they weren't even trying to go for him, or just putting votes on him just in case or whatever, I thought was crazy. Because
I'm pretty sure they knew he had an idol.
Okay.
If I remember, because I remember
they did. They knew he did. They didn't know that Ben had one.
Yeah, keeping Ben around to battle Tony in fire, it seems like a risky proposition when you still have 6, because then you're really banking on a lot of stuff. Plus, they're really close to each other, so then you gotta bank that neither of them are going to win and take the other because they have a strong alliance. I don't know, man. This whole vote should have been easy Denise, and that's why it's kind of annoying just in general.
Right. The two guys really left Sarah out hanging. I mean, she was one of, the people who could have gone home. And it was like, they're just so sure that Natalie doesn't have an idol that they're just like, well, we don't need.
Well, not Tony. Like, Tony tried.
Right.
Yeah. He didn't push hard enough.
Sarah almost did herself in right there, because Sarah was like, nah, she doesn't have it. Why won't you believe me? I was like, oh my God, you're so wrong right now.
Which I'm glad you brought up, Mike, because in that instance with Sarah and Tony talking about that, when Sarah was like, no, she doesn't have one, and Tony said, okay, if you're 100% on it, then I am going to do you think that it was a missed opportunity for Tony to take that and vote out Sarah?
I was kind of hoping that he was going to go to Ben, and not vote out Sarah, but go to Ben or somebody and say, yo, Sarah's wrong. We've got to put 2 on the other and switch it up like that, and just really try to make a move like that, because no one would believe him.
See, as much as in this moment, we probably we would have wanted Tony to make an opportunity to kind of be like, look, I told you. I don't think he could have done that. Tony came into this season trying to play a completely different game than he was playing his first 2 seasons. And part of his gameplay and part of the reason why he was able to actually make really good, strong connections was the fact that he never tried to be a complete leader and just go against his alliances. He would try and try to convince them if he felt like they were making the wrong move, but in the end he would go with his alliance, and that's what eventually led to the very strong bonds that made people want to work with him, that made people want to vote for him. So yes, this could have been an opportunity for Tony to maybe do something, but I think it could have really sabotaged his game had he done that.
I agree. So back at camp, Tony obviously relays his frustrations with Ben and Sarah, and pretty much saying, "I told you so." But now there is an idol back on the island, so obviously we know Tony's going to go and look for it. Now, Natalie was the one that finds it. Did anybody think? Because when they do these edits and they show the person looking for the idol, especially when it's Tony, because he always finds them. Did we think that it was going to be Tony to find it?
Yeah, with his conch shell fire and everything, I was like, "Let's go, 100%." But
I just can't believe he can stay up all night.
He's a monster. And
it's $2 million. $2 million will make you stay up all night.
Yeah, every time Natalie won something in this episode, every time I jumped up out of my seat. I was like, "Let's go!" I was so fired up. When she fought again, I was like, "Yes!" I was so excited for her.
Same. We wanted Natalie to come back. She did. We knew that she was going to be a target, so she needs every benefit that she could find, and she did it. She found it. Let's talk about this second immunity idol. Second immunity challenge. Race through obstacles, collecting a key, land sandbags on a target. Now we've seen this before. Really quick, everybody in the chat probably
wants to quickly blow through these challenges now. Sandbags on target.
Yeah. Steve, have you done this before?
No, I have not.
What? Oh, okay.
No part of this.
Well, okay. What was the first part of this?
You got to go on the balance beam and then untie the thing.
Oh yeah. Those parts are so much fun, and they're so visual that like those are the ones you kind of mug for the camera because you're gonna be able to like watch it back at base camp. You're like, yeah, it was great, but no, I never did a sandbag or the toss where you have to land it directly on. But I knew that I was like, anybody can win this. You could be like throwing all day. It can go 1-2. So yeah, I was definitely like on the edge of my seat the entire time.
This has got to be one of the most annoying challenges. I swear. If I was doing that and somebody else win, I would chuck a beanbag so far into the ocean you can't even imagine.
Especially when it lands on the tray and then
and
just rolls off. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that challenge had my like blood pressure all the way up. My anxiety, I could not handle it because the edit, it was like one after the other. Ben, just kidding. Tony, just kidding. It's like, who is actually going to win this?
Music crescendos.
Man, they should have used that like really high quality audio, but they spent so much money on this season for this challenge. But it was tough because this, like you were mentioning, Tim, everyone at this point is on an equal playing field. Natalie has her idol, but nobody else has any type of advantages. So whoever you were rooting for at this point, you really wanted them to win.
Yeah. So Tony winds up winning. He pulls it through.
Sick.
4 immunity wins. Congratulations to him. He needs 5 in order to tie the record. He has 4. Now back at camp, Natalie wants to use Sarah to break up Ben, Tony, and Sarah alliance. Pretty much her motive coming back from Edge of Extinction was to break up the 3 of them. And we see Sarah and Ben have a conversation, and Ben pretty much gives Sarah permission to write his name down because Ben sees that Sarah's risking a lot trying to protect him. And this is another emotional moment that I had with the episode, because I have never seen this before. I didn't think that this would happen, especially with a $2 million prize, especially when it's this close to the wire. What did you guys think about it?
I thought this moment was very, very sweet. And I think, like you're saying, Tim, it's like you've made it this far. Why would you risk $2 million? Why would you allow someone to write your name down? But I think for Ben, we've kind of seen Ben struggle with his social game throughout this entire season, kind of closing doors on alliances and kind of being reluctant to work with people. And I think that at this point of the game, Ben really started to see, the people that he can trust and the people that he grew actual bonds with, actual relationships with. You know, he talked about Denise not just being a vote, he talked about her being a friend. And the same thing goes for Sarah. So I think, you know, Ben having his real moments of how he went back to his everyday life and he had a lot of trust issues. I think this season of Survivor really helped him fix those trust issues. And I think for him being, and you know, he even kind of said it while exiting, that being able to have those relationships means a lot more than the money for him. And I think that was his personal journey this season.
I hated it. I mean, everybody in the everybody who watches this knows I dislike it. I really, really like Ben. I've liked Ben since the first time he played. We talked a lot about the social troubles and things, and how I've kind of been a little disappointed with the gameplay he's played or whatever. And I get what he was doing, and I get the sweetness and all that other kind of stuff. But he deserves to be there. He's a winner. You know, I understand the friendships being worth more than the money. I'm down. I totally get it. I'm not trying to downplay that whatsoever. But he deserves a shot. He shouldn't give up on himself. And if anybody was somehow like not friends with him or something like that because he tried to play as hard as he possibly could to get the $2 million for his family, they're crazy too, and they're not real friends. So I don't think he should have thrown it away. I think he should have kept working and try to find a way around it, because I think he deserves it.
I think that this is the moment that you bump Michelle because you need Ben around who as a potential fire, challenge to Tony. This is the moment you're like, okay, now we got to start thinking about that final fire challenge. That being said, I was choked up. It was incredibly moving to me. And I think that this also speaks to another theme of this season about how the show affects people in their real lives. I also think it was a testament to Sarah's social game, is that Ben would do that for her and not for Denise or anyone else. But the fact that he, he's like, I want to play a better social game. And that was, his goal was to win Survivor and to play a better social game than he did last time. Maybe he started to think, I'm not going to win this one. So rather than, miss out on both of my goals, since I've definitely rubbed some people the wrong way, which is why I won't win in the final, he kind of redeemed himself in the end. It's sort of like the action movie trope where it's like the guy who hasn't been pulling his weight the entire time and just sacrifices himself. You guys go ahead. And then it's just like he redeems himself at the last moment. So just for the narrative of it, I loved it. I thought it was a great moment. They can't all win. So if Ben's going to go out, that's a great way to go out.
I mean, he's a Marine guy, so there's that too.
Let me add this on top. I actually thought what he did and the way he said it contradicts what he was trying to get across. Okay. So he said, you have my permission to vote me out so you won't look like you just got carried through. But that's literally carrying her through. Right? Saying, you know what, I'm not going to fight, vote me out. Then she's not even fighting for it, right? Isn't that a carry through? As soon as he said that, I was like, bro, that's defeating the whole purpose, and she doesn't have to work for it.
I mean, let's be clear.
I think Sarah did work for it and all that. Like, don't get me, I'm not trying to downplay her game.
Right.
But just in that moment, I was like, Ben, don't do this.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't think that he necessarily had to do that. I'm glad that he did, because I think that those three people did need to be broken up. But I do agree with the fact that, Sarah wasn't carried through. So whether or not she voted him off or not, the jury would have never thought Sarah was carried to the end, because she wasn't. That's just a fact. So second tribal council, with Sarah's permission of, voting Ben, Natalie plays her idol for herself. Ben gets 3 votes, surprising Tony. Michelle only gets 2. Ben is going home. Did anybody think that Sarah wasn't going to actually vote for Ben?
Yeah.
You know what? I was 50-50 on that too. Just because, like I said, relationships played such a strong part of this season that I really thought that alliance was so strong that even though Sarah had permission to vote him out, she would want to, keep her alliance strong.
Yeah,
I was surprised.
People against Nat,
I got it. Had Sarah made it to the end, she was going to need to find some way to distance herself from Tony and some kind of move against Tony, and this would have been it.
I agree. No, I completely agree. So let's get into the final immunity challenge right after
Wait,
this.
hang on one second, Timmy, because
Yes.
everybody in the chat's going nuts right now. So
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. They're talking about the double standard of Sandra quitting
Mhm.
and being kind of chastised for being a quitter, and what Ben did as being seen kind of like saintly and a martyr and all this other kind of stuff. I mean,
Maybe this goes back to those men and women biases.
maybe I'm not letting Ben get away with it. I think it's terrible. I don't want him to do it at all. Did he quit just as much as Sandra? Yeah, I kind of think he did. If he's just gonna lay down, if that was 100% truthful, and he wasn't gonna try to fight whatever anymore and just kind of lay down and do whatever, then yeah, I think he did quit just as much as Sandra.
I disagree because I mean, we see him talk to the camera at one point and he says, as much as I told Sarah and gave her permission to write my name down, I don't want her to write my name down. Obviously, then he probably shouldn't have said anything, but I don't think he wanted to go home. So that's really not the same as quitting.
So that's fair. So maybe it's in the edit. We don't see his scramble. If I had then see him go to Tony and be like, "Yo, we've got to blah, blah, blah," sure. But if it's truly what happened, and he was just like, "You know what? I give you permission. Let's cry together." And I'm going home. Well, then you just kind of threw your hands up then, right?
Here's what I think.
Go ahead.
In my personal opinion, I think that both Ben and Sandra, at the points that they left the game, they were satisfied enough with where their growth was, that they were okay with whatever the result was. That's kind of how I see it. I'm not gonna, first of all, I never chastised or criticized Sandra for quitting. She's still the queen.
I did.
I don't care what anyone says.
I did.
She's still the queen. But that's just the way I see it, is I think that they both came to points in their Survivor career where they were satisfied.
That's fair.
That being said, Sandra was like, I have nothing left to prove, so I'm just going to leave. And Ben's like, well, this was what I wanted to accomplish, so maybe I will allow myself to be voted out of this game for a larger goal. I just don't know what Sandra's goal was in leaving the game, other than like, I'm tired and I'm not going to make it back in the game anyway. Like there was some sort of a purpose to Ben's leaving the game, and I didn't really feel it as much as Sandra's. That being said, I will say, as soon as Sandra left the game, I immediately emailed some of my old contacts from Survivor. I was like, yo, what is up with this? How could she just walk away like this? She's a legend. And they said, we want to remind you, she had just filmed an entire season. They filmed back to back. She was on Island of the Idols, and she and Rob really were out on the island. They're not living in a hotel somewhere. They really were out on the island. So she had just done a full season. I mean, Rob was too, but he stuck it out. Sandra, she was just worn out. And I can see where she's coming from.
I am ready to starve for $2 million.
Yeah, exactly.
Same, Mike, same. I think we all might need to start after this quarantine, because I've been eating literally everything. So let's talk about the final immunity challenge. We've seen this before: hand tied behind the back, dropping a ball at different intervals. If you drop the ball, you're out. Tony out, Sarah out. It's down to Michelle and Natalie, which I was once again surprised by.
Tony barely play.
But yeah, Tony barely played. Yeah. Natalie winds up pulling it out when she needs it once again. Natalie's a beast, you guys. I mean, there's really no other way to say it.
Come on.
I mean, she came back to play, and she did.
For sure.
She's nuts.
I mean, the way she was like juggling the balls as they were, she did not have the pace that Michelle had said. I thought Michelle was golden. I was like, look at her. She got them all spaced out correctly. Natalie's like bobbling the ball and just hanging on by a thread, but she hung out long enough.
Steve, you did this one?
Okay, I was not allowed to test this one because I played it so many times back at base camp. They're like, no, we need people who are actually going to test this like a real contestant.
Fair enough, man.
Stop being good at challenges.
Yeah,
Stop
Steve
it.
is like a perfectionist.
You've been
over
practicing.
You've been practicing.
So because Natalie won, now it is up to her to figure out who is going to be making fire. Now she's got two options. She tells the camera she obviously is picking Tony to build fire. Now it's either she wants to pick Michelle against Tony or Sarah against Tony. If she picks Sarah against Tony and Sarah wins, it's just a notch on Sarah's belt. Now, if Michelle goes against Tony, that might be a little bit better of an option. I thought that's personally who she was going to pick to go against Tony because of, how they talked it out. And on top of that, I really enjoyed Michelle and how up to the challenge she was. She wasn't, because we've seen it before, you guys, when somebody is going to be picked for, they're usually like, no, please don't pick me. I'm really bad at it. I'm not going to. Michelle was like, if you pick me, let's go. I'm down. I will beat him. I will do what it takes. This is what I need in order to win. I'll do it. So I've got to give her props to being up to the challenge because not many people are.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought for a split second she was going to go with Michelle, but I feel like in my gut, it's the wrong move. I think, okay, I predicted that of them, Michelle would not get any votes. That was just my gut. So when I'm picking, I said, look, you got to do what's the best possible thing for your game. You got to take Michelle to the final. If you bring Sarah and Tony, damn, they're both going to get a lot of votes. I feel like you have no shot. So you got to guarantee knock one of them off. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that even though because she is obviously afraid of Sarah adding to her resume, it would be smart to have Michelle make fire against Tony. But in the event that Tony wins, I think it's having them in the final, Sarah and Tony, as opposed to like Michelle and Tony, just would make it harder for Natalie.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. So we saw Tony win. It was a very close fire making challenge. Mike, we all know that you hate the fire making challenges, but you have to admit it was very close. Usually
this was the best fire making challenge they've ever had.
By far.
So there
By
you go.
far.
Yeah, I'll admit that for sure.
Gosh, it was back and forth. Like again, I was like, it's Sarah. Sarah's taking it. Oh wait, no, it's not. Her fire went down. It's Tony. Oh my god.
Can't be all coconut husks right off the bat, bro.
Her string was actually starting to burn. There were embers. It was just like, oh my god, back and forth. It's so good to see too, because you do not want to see somebody totally fizzle out in the Survivor Super Bowl and the final. Oh my gosh, it was just.
Yeah.
So good.
Oh yeah. Also, any of the jury giving Natalie flack for not just jumping in and battling. No. You go to the end, guaranteed.
Oh my God.
No, you don't do that.
Can I rant about this like real quick?
Really quick before we do that, because you know what? Let's just catch up to it. So day 39, okay. After this, Tony winds up winning. They have their day 39 Survivor breakfast. Yay, everybody's happy. Let's get into the final Tribal Council. Now, Veronica, they did bring up the whole fact that Natalie didn't step in to go against Tony to make fire. Go ahead.
Perfect. Great. So here we go. Okay, so obviously everyone was talking about the idea of Natalie giving up her immunity to go against fire against Tony because of what happened in the first Edge of Extinction season, which was what Chris did. Now, here's the thing with Natalie. Natalie was the first person voted off this season, and Edge of Extinction is a completely different beast than it was the first time it was introduced. You're still playing on Edge of Extinction. You still have a voice in the game. Who you send advantages or disadvantages to can really affect the game. You're earning fire tokens. You're running up and down a mountain to get logs. Like, you are still playing this game. And I feel like for Natalie, when she got back in the game, she was playing hard. She was finding idols. She won her immunities. For her game was so different than the game that Chris played. When Chris got back in his season, he needed to go balls to the wall because he wasn't doing anything on Edge. When his Edge had nothing. So he had to go crazy to be like, hey, those days where I was doing nothing, I am playing in overdrive. Whereas Natalie was playing a consistent game, a different game, but a consistent game. And so by the time she won that immunity, she felt confident and content that she had enough of a game to argue at the final tribal, and she didn't have to risk it. She didn't have to risk playing idols for people. She was looking out for number one. That's exactly what she was doing.
That's a really good point. And also, my wife had a really good point when she was like, they're not going to vote for the Edge player because the Edge winner story just happened. So, if she had done that, I would have been like, okay, is she just like straight up taking a page out of the Chris Underwood playbook? Like,
right.
I felt like, if I was on the jury, I would have respected the fact that she made a smart move, maybe, rather than it's like, okay, you sort of have to weigh the risks. It would have been huge if she had come up and sent Tony home. And if she had, if Tony's not there and it's Natalie, I think you have to give it to Natalie. But it's also like, do we really want to vote the Edge winner again? So yeah, I think you made a really good point though about the fact that she was playing hard the entire time.
But I mean, that just kind of furthers Veronica's point, though, in saying, that's kind of not fair to Natalie for the jury to sit there and even think about Chris and Chris's win. And hey, if we vote for Natalie, then that would give it to another Edge member who fought their way back into the game, because they are two completely different games. It's like, that's like saying, Tony won already, and it's different this time. So I think that Natalie played her heart out, and whether she was on the main island or Edge of Extinction, I think her missed opportunity, and we saw it with this jury questionnaire panel, however you want to call it, her missed opportunity was isolating herself from a lot of players on Edge of Extinction. I personally thought that Natalie was making connections on Edge of Extinction. I thought these Edge of Extinction players were going to look at Natalie and go, she's one of us. But, I think it was Boston Rob that said, you isolated yourself from a lot of us in this game. And she obviously had her reasonings, but I think it was a missed opportunity and maybe cost her $2 million.
Yeah, I mean, she does have the perfect ability to bond with all the potential jury members. But, maybe there's some hard feelings about, well, I was on Edge too, and I don't know that you really deserve to get off instead of me, and you were voted off before me. You were voted off first, and there's a lot of really complex things going on with that.
Yeah, a lot of those people spent more time with Tony than they did with
That's
Natalie,
right.
So
yeah, that's true. Now let's talk about the final three. Obviously, we're talking about the jury now. Michelle, Tony, Natalie. To be fair, and I'm going to say this, and I want everybody who's watching to hear me. Nobody who is in this final three is a GOAT. Everybody that is in this final three deserves to be there. And I 110% believe this, especially after they answered the jury questions, because we could all look at Michelle and go, well, did she really do anything? And after Michelle's answers, I personally didn't believe that going into it, but I could see how the jury would see that. But after Michelle answered it, I honestly believe that Michelle was fought one of the hardest battles, because she was constantly on the bottom. She constantly didn't have the numbers, and she never had anybody helping her. In fact, she was going out of her way to help everybody else, even though she knew that it wasn't going to be in her best interest. She still was going to do it. So I got to give kudos to, once again, Michelle for playing a true to herself game. What did you guys think of Michelle's gameplay?
Well, kind of just going off of Michelle's gameplay, Tim, I just want to say I really liked this final three, because in all the seasons I've seen of Survivor, I don't think I've ever seen such three diverse and unique narratives to take to the end.
Mm-hmm.
You have three
Yes.
different narratives that everybody is, expressing why they deserve to win. And no one can argue against anybody else, because that's not their story. Natalie's the fighter, making her way back from Edge of Extinction. Michelle's the underdog, constantly picking herself up from the bottom. And Tony is just like the perfect, well-rounded player. So they can't argue against each other on their games, because their games are so diverse, and they were just so great to see in the end.
Yeah, and her answers at the final tribal were so genuine that it was like, look, I'm just not a Tony. Tony's a cop. I'm a different person. I play to my strengths, and that's what I've done. And to make it to, she's never been voted out of Survivor. She's been to 2 finals. She's won. I don't see how anyone can stand there and really disparage Michelle and what she's accomplished.
Yeah, I probably contradicted myself on previous shows that we've done, but well, first of all, I'll say every season we do, I hate final three. I still think it should be final two. I think there should be some final outlast challenge, like the old school, put your hand on a log and stand for 3 days. So that's what I think. But I think like season one. So okay, I honestly right now, despite whatever I might have said, I don't think anybody that makes it to the final is really a GOAT. You got there somehow based on what you did. If you slipped through or whatever, you got to the final and you deserve to be there. Some people maybe less than more. Some people are obviously not threats or whatever, but so what? You got to sit at the final and everybody else didn't. So there you go. I still stand by what I said. Based on this, my gut feeling was that Michelle wasn't going to get any votes. While I think she was always playing from behind, I don't think she ever made enough big moves or anything like that to stand out and to really put a stamp on it and say, I did this, I crushed it, I won all this kind of stuff. She played great, but I think the other two did better.
That's fair to say.
I think that
Yeah, I
Michelle's
think
one of her great strengths is responding to problems. You know, Tony was very good at anticipating problems and getting out in front of them. And for whatever reason, Michelle's just not that kind of person who has that sort of ability to sniff out a trap or just weave, you know, just to get out of the way just in time. She gets hit, but then she comes back. And I think that's really admirable quality in a player.
Yeah, I think I agree with you, Steve. I think that Michelle is very good at being able to express her gameplay from who she is as a person. You know, who said it? One of you said it. Someone said that Tony was a cop. You know what I mean? Where it's like she's not going to compare herself to one of the other players.
Sure.
And I have to agree with you, Mike, in this instance, in that while I loved each three narratives, I did think that Michelle wouldn't get any votes. And it just goes back to the idea of the final three, where I feel like it's always usually leaning towards two people as opposed to, you know, kind of nicely dividing it between the three. And in this particular case, I think, you know, Tony obviously won because he was just so good at the game. And then Natalie had the relationships that she built on Edge. And I think people were really just torn on those two types of narratives. So I think, you know, when there's a final three, there's always just two people that the jury tends to lean towards.
Yeah, let's talk about Tony really quick. So Tony, very different gameplay from when he first played. We all knew that. Very under the radar in the first half of this season, and then out of nowhere turns into this super player who, Veronica, I'm going to use your words, became a very well-rounded player in the end and surprised, honestly, all of us, and really fought hard for it. He made some big moves. He was calling a lot of the shots. And, you know, personally, I've never been a fan of Tony. Everybody who watches our show knows that I'm not a big fan of Tony. But I do have to give him credit. He played a very, very, very good game. Obviously, he won. How did you guys feel about the way that Tony played the game throughout the season?
Not to mention being called out by Natalie, and the entire jury knows he got called out. And so that right there could have shifted the jury, be like, whoa, wait, I don't actually think that, and then give it a negative spin. I think he did fantastic. I think anybody going on Survivor should check this, study it, and realize how somebody who's a very outgoing alpha type player and person can still be that and kind of be true to themselves, but stay under the radar in the beginning and not get clipped right away for being that kind of person.
Woo! I was so happy because here's the thing. I'm in the same boat as you, Tim. When Tony first played in Cagayan, his gameplay, to me personally, I know it's different for everyone, but for me personally, I found his gameplay somewhat frustrating. And, you know, he came back with that same approach in Game Changers. But this time around, Tony really came to prove that he is playing a better game. And he was, not only was he such great television, you know, with his spy nest and, you know, all of his little remarks, his extortion challenge, but, you know, he really worked on his social game. He was always really good with strategy. I just think he became such a well-rounded player. And no one thought that he was going to not only win, but to win with absolutely no votes cast against him. Like, what a complete transformation.
Crazy.
No one thought Tony would have ever gotten as far as he did.
I think that Tony's game this season got better exponentially. So early on in the season, he, you know, built the foundation. He made some good moves, but they were good moves. They were steady moves, but they were just slowly, incrementally getting a little bit better and better. And then as the season went on, it was like another big move, an even bigger big move. And even like, I think it was like the Sophie vote that I was like, okay, Tony just took this to the next level. And it was like when there was a crazy tribal where Jeremy left, and it was like everyone was so mentally fried that they're just like, okay, I think the next one, we don't have to whisper and scramble and do all this stuff. And Tony was like, now is the time to put the pedal through the floor. He went hard. So it just, when everyone else was relaxing, he's like, this is the best time to go hard. No, there's no breaks in this season. And I thought that was just so amazing that he played both sides, which is a very, very risky strategy. He played it so well. When he was being extorted, he got fire tokens from 2 different competing alliances. I mean, it was just, I was like, how does he do this? And, you know, you watch it as a viewer and you're like, come on, can't they see through this, that he's like, you know, playing both sides? But when you're there in the moment and he's just so earnest, and sometimes I think that he doesn't even know exactly which side he's leaning towards. He's just going whichever one suits him at that moment. And it was just like, okay, Natalie has a great story. Michelle has a great story, but how can anyone not vote for Tony?
Well, I think that one of the best things that Tony did this season was aligning himself with Sarah, because Sarah was a great social game player, and having that rock and having that connection with Sarah really, really, I mean, established Tony's gameplay and really brought him to the end. I mean, he did a lot more than that, but I think that having Sarah as his partner in this, in crime, if you will, really helped him get to the end. Now, I have to ask you guys, Tony, Michelle, Natalie, who has your vote?
Tony.
Tony. Easy.
Yeah.
I would have voted for Michelle.
What?
I'm one of those players.
Tim and no one else.
I just,
It
yeah,
depends.
I know.
No.
I know. I get it. I'm probably going to get a lot of slack for it, but I really.
Oh, no, that's cool. Why?
No, I really respected Michelle's gameplay. I really thought that, you know, she played true to herself. I have always wanted to root for an underdog. You guys know this about me. And I feel like Michelle was the ultimate underdog. She was constantly on the bottom. Like I said, she was always trying to figure out numbers. She never closed any door to, you know, working with a player. I mean, she fought, and she fought hard.
I mean, the vote was 12-4.
It was.
I mean, Tony was unbelievably dominant. I don't know if I told you my prediction before the show. You want me to say it right now?
Go ahead.
Okay. I think last night marked the end of Edge of Extinction. Obviously, if they're filming something right now or whatever, I don't know what they already have planned, but I don't know that you could literally play a better game than Natalie did with regards to Edge of Extinction, and she lost. So I feel like that's just like, well, there's no shot. Let's just maybe eliminate this, unless they do it for just maybe the first half or something, because she was voted out first. She came back. She dominated on Edge of Extinction. She dominated when she got back, and she still lost. So,
well, here's the thing: is I agree that probably after last night, Edge of Extinction is done, because from a production standpoint, Edge of Extinction has done what it set out to do 2 seasons in a row now. The first season it was introduced, it proved like this is the whole point of the season, is that someone can come back and win it. Right. And this season, although Natalie didn't win it, she voted out first, made it back into the final 3. She didn't win, but she still fought her way back. I don't think that Edge of Extinction can go another season and have that same type of, like, you know, champion narrative.
Yeah, it only goes downhill from there.
Well, and also, you know, the production, I'm sure they're aware of the controversy that a lot of fans hate Edge of Extinction. And, you know, I'm not a huge fan of it, but this season I loved it because I don't want to see, you know, 2 episodes of Amber after waiting this many years and then not see her again. You know, these are people that I just want to see. I want to see them playing. I want to see them experiencing Survivor. Ethan and Danny, people who we haven't seen in a long time. Yule, I loved it. So I was like, sometimes I did think this Edge of Extinction sequence sort of took away from a little bit of the gameplay that I would have rather have seen. But for this season, I'm really glad they did it, because I just loved seeing Rob and Amber out there again. And, you know, maybe it was a little bit nostalgic, but this was the season 4. So.
Well, I think they could have done even more with Edge of Extinction this season. Part of the big problem with the first Edge of Extinction, and not to rag on her, because I know we did plenty of it and whatever, but we kept saying the whole time we were covering it that Reem could have won the whole game, right? Mm-hmm. And she was voted off first, And on that Edge of Extinction, all you had to do was literally sit. I mean, yeah, get rice, but there's nothing else to do. And that I feel like if she had won or somebody else like that, that would have felt really empty and kind of like somehow disappointing, because all you really had to do was survive, I guess, with the food and stuff that was just given to you. At least now there was gameplay. Natalie had effects on the game and things like that. I think they could have gone further and done more actual challenges even on Edge of Extinction. I feel like we got very few reward challenges this season for some reason. Maybe that's just my bad memory, but that's what it seemed like. So there was, I feel like, time for more challenges, that they did some actual physical things besides just, go, everybody get a coconut and you can all win, like some actual challenges amongst themselves. But yeah, it was cool to see all the all-stars, basically.
I think this was a very, sorry, Monica, really quick. I think this was a very pivotal moment for Survivor, because it's season 40. It's all winners. From here on out, I mean, you have to do a lot to kind of top what you just did.
Sure.
So I honestly can't say what they are going to do, whether that be Edge of Extinction 2.0 or 3.0, whatever you want to call it, or if they're going to bring out hidden immunity idols, or if they're not going to do hidden immunity idols, which is something for my prediction later on. But yeah, but I don't know what they're going to do. But I do know that this season was top of the bar, and I don't know how you raise it.
Right.
Oh yeah.
Nor do they really necessarily know what they're going to do, because I believe Jeff said they're still casting 41. Coronavirus might have put a lockdown on everything. So yeah, they might not even know what it is.
You know what I am over though? Fiji. I think we need to go to a different island. I
actually I agree with you, Tim. I actually kind of like some of the older seasons of Survivor where they did it based on locations. Like, Africa obviously was very different. Tocantins was very different. So I'd be down for them to change locations.
Same.
100%.
So congratulations to Tony. He won the $2 million prize. Well deserved. Anybody who would have won tonight, I felt would have deserved it. But he pulled it through. Congratulations to Tony. I'm interested to see great kids.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really nice to see
fun.
Everybody with their family
Team
on
Tony.
video chat. Team we know,
Team
Mike. We got it.
The little shirts. They were cute.
Oh yeah. Well, in terms of Team Tony, Mike did win the fantasy draft. Tony was the last person on
2 in a row, baby.
Draft. 2 in a row. Yeah, I had 3 people, you guys. I had Sarah, Natalie, and Michelle in my fantasy draft. Every single draft.
You did?
Yeah, down to you. So you won with one person. I'm still mad about it. I'm very salty about it, you guys.
Good.
Well, congratulations to Mike. Congratulations to Tony. Before we head out, you guys, I do want to hear some thoughts on what you guys might think is season 41 of Survivor. Now, I'll give you guys some time to think about it while I share my thoughts. I think that they are going to do a season, hopefully next season, where there are no hidden immunity idols, where everybody is paranoid about, who has a hidden immunity idol, who doesn't, blah, 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 but there weren't any to begin with. And I think that would really cause a lot of chaos, and I think it'd be a really fun game to watch.
You know what? When we were getting to the end of last night's episode, I thought the same thing. What if they come back with no hidden immunity idols? That would be crazy. Back to old school. You've got to win to win. None of these little trickaroo things. I saw somebody in the chat earlier put heroes versus villains too. I think next season, this is a crappy prediction, but I think next season is going to be all new people, all nobodies in the Survivor world, let's say. And maybe they go back to some kind of theme. Bronze, beauty, brains, something like that.
Oh, please, God, not that one.
No, see, I actually agree with you, Mike. I think just kind of based off of the hint that Jeff gave, like if you're, 16, 17, or 18, apply. I think that they might be going back to some kind of thing, like maybe doing like Gen Z versus, I don't know, another millennials type, Gen X type of situation. Because
what happens after
in my
Gen
personal,
Z?
I don't know.
There's no more letters,
Someone
Veronica.
No, just, you know what I mean? Just like some other type of theme like millennials versus Gen X, because in my personal opinion, I think themes are some of the more stronger Survivor seasons. David versus Goliath, heroes versus villains, millennials versus Gen X, bronze versus beauty versus brains, some of those, in my opinion, are stronger. So I think going back to a theme might be what they're doing.
Shout out to CC Teresa, who said the fire tokens might still be a thing. I was just going to say, I think that this season, the fire tokens were really interesting. They still seemed a little rough around the edges. Like people still weren't quite sure what to make of them. And then towards the end, they sort of fizzled out. You know, Denise just bought a big thing of rice, and you know, Natalie's fire tokens came in huge. But I think that the fire tokens have so much potential. Especially if they're being passed between players just in the game, you know, like if they can use those not just at a time where it's like, okay, now is the time where you can buy something. You know, the times when people are like, hey, can I get a fire token? Or, you know, I'll do this for you for 2 fire tokens. That was really interesting to me. And I'd like to see more of that.
I think you're onto something, Steve, because Jeff was constantly saying, you know, this establishes, you know, a survivor economy, if you will. So I think that you're onto something. I think the fire tokens will be back.
What about like a mega survivor? Like, hold with me for a second.
Oh boy, here we go.
What if we did, ready? What if we did 32 people, okay? 32 or something like that, where 16 and 16 were competing in what they thought was Survivor. And then at the merge, you slam, they've never met each other. They don't know the other group is going on. And then they get slammed together at like 8 and 8 or something like that.
That'd be a huge build.
Something chaotic. Steve,
Jeff would be exhausted. Jeff would be so tired.
We're gonna ship Steve back. He's got to build new things and test new stuff out.
No, screw that. If Steve goes, we all go, you guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a package deal now.
Joseph Boza in the chat says
down the water slide.
Teens versus parents.
Yes, that would be hilarious.
Teens versus parents, Generation TikTok. Someone said, man, I don't know. Well, I do know that we'll be here for it.
I do know that we will be here for it. I do know that it was a pleasure doing this season with you guys and everybody who watched. We thank you all. Mike, please give us some shout outs. I know we have some family members in the chat right now.
Dude, there's so many people. Sheena, Meg, Blue Shift Eyes, Prophet, Joseph Boza, Bria, Last Pop, Molly, Random Guy, Solomon was in here before, Chels, Ryan D, Mirror Domains, Jules, Eric Olin, Royal, all of our friends. You guys have been with us for many, many, many seasons. We appreciate you guys coming back and back over and over and over again. Of course, you know, just because we're ending here right now doesn't mean AfterBuzz is whatsoever. We got you all covered for the entire quarantine. I'm doing the finale of Bachelor. Listen to your heart next week. Oh my gosh, there's so many shows. But go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Give us a big thumbs up on this, our finale episode, guys. We really appreciate it. 5-star reviews. You guys rock. Stay safe. We love you, and we'll see you again real soon.
Yeah, guys, we wouldn't have this show without you. Yes, my feeling. We wouldn't be able to do the show without you guys. We did this show for you. And even though during this quarantine, during this pandemic, you guys sticked with us, and we really, really appreciate it. We love you guys for that. Veronica, where can our fans find you?
Hey everyone, you can find me, Veronica Valencia, on Twitter and Instagram at It's Me, Veronica V. Again, thank you so much for tuning in with us all season long. This was such an amazing season. I love this panel. I love covering this show.
Steve, go ahead and hold up your vote.
There it is, baby. Woo!
Hey!
On TV. Oh my gosh. I don't know what's going to be happening next season of Survivor, but I know that I'll be watching. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Mike, Tim, and Veronica, for letting me join your panel. This was so much fun. Just every week, Survivor was so much fun to watch, but it was so much more fun knowing that I was going to get to come on here on AfterBuzz and talk to you guys about this whole crazy season. It was just so much fun. Loved it.
Awesome.
Steve, I have to say on behalf of Veronica, Mike, and probably everybody in the chat and everybody that watches our show, Steve, you have been such an honor to have on our show. And I hope that you come back for following seasons and be with me, Mike, and Veronica.
Absolutely.
I am Timothy Michael. You guys can find me everywhere at I am Timothy Mike. That is season 40. Winners at War of Survivor. That is our finale, you guys. We will see you next season, whatever it will be for season 41. Everybody stay safe through this pandemic. If you need us, tweet us, reach out to us. We will be here for you guys. Thank you, everybody. See you guys next season.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.